Hey,
What?
did you get them?
I may have distracted him with the kiss and snuck them out of his jacket.
My mortal.
Let's go. What's Sam researching now?
I think he's just cataloging books right now. Now this, Sandra, this is just the kind of relaxation we needed after the day we've had.
Oh, Karlee, we've got someone in the back seat again.
Oh, bloody hell. Oh, it's you. Sorry. I didn't see you there. Don't mind the demon blade.
All right. Well, you know Dean's house rules and baby. Driver picks the music, shotgun shuts his cakehole, and the ones in the back enjoy the ride, idling in the Impala.
Hi, welcome to Idling in the Impala, a podcast by and for lovers of supernatural and the fanfiction it inspires. My name is Karlee. I'm here with my co-host,
Sandra. Hi, thank you for joining us. And we are looking forward to talking about AO3 tags. I'm looking forward to talking about fan fiction and supernatural, our gripes about tags, being, writers and readers of fan fiction. And I know that we've been sort of like off and on talking about a couple different things that we enjoy and that we just want to like beat our heads over about like different ways of doing things when it comes to writing and then tagging.
Yeah.
But
I got feelings.
you
I
got
got
feelings. I
feelings.
know. I remember. There's definitely a feeling coming up later.
There's feelings. I have opinions on tags.
But what I wanted to ask you first was, I kind of got into, even though my experience with fan fiction writing, I started way back in, I guess like the late 90s. My fan fiction experience had more to do with just different websites that had like little message boards and things on them. And I don't know if you ever used web domain sites like Angel Fire or different things like that, but like GeoCities. I don't know if any of that rings a bell. You're probably too young for that, but those are all like, I just remember those kinds of like domain names in web addresses and stuff where people would create different sites where they would kind of like toss their fan fiction and people would have their little message groups and they would post and there'd be discussions. So it was very kind of very old school in terms of how I approached fan fiction writing. And so I didn't actually really start to get back into it until do you ever used Wattpad? Because that was like one of the first things I used.
I know of it. I haven't
Okay.
used it myself. I
Okay.
used maybe a slightly newer website where it was just like a creative community kind of place, and there was like fanfic, original fiction, poems and stuff like that. But it was kind of more centralized around like bands and like the sort of emo alternative culture of the time.
Okay.
So a lot of the works you would find would be based around like the really popular sort of emo bands of the time: My Chemical Romance, The Used, Avenged Sevenfold, who aren't emo, but like it was like that was the kind of community. It was music as well as writing and fan fiction.
Okay. Yeah. And like mine, like I said, more for the late 90s. So I guess as full disclosure, like I'm a huge Leonardo DiCaprio fan. Like I've been a fan of his forever, like since he was like on Growing Pains in like the early 90s. So he's kind of how I sort of got into writing fan fiction. So I didn't do like the Titanic fan fiction and stuff like that, but like I read a lot of that. And then I started writing um, fan fiction around like the Man in the Iron Mask and the beach and stuff like that, and like really like long,
Oh, the
epic
beach!
kind of stuff. I
What
love
a
I
movie that was!
that was actually like one of the fictions I eventually put on Wattpad, like that I had because I'd started it years ago and I'd maybe gotten like I don't know, 4 or 5 chapters into it. And then I stopped. And then when I got back into writing again, I'm like, well, I always really liked this idea, but I never finished it. So I started working on it and I started posting it on Wattpad. And we're talking like almost 15 years later that I finally like finished it and was posting it. And, got people that liked it. And, then I started doing a couple other things. And that's kind of how I got into writing more original fiction. So like Leo's really kind of like what got me into just writing and enjoying writing. And so he was like my first big, like, super crush that kind of related to fan fiction, I guess. So, but I did more writing when I was younger, but this is like the writing where like you would write in a notebook and you would pass it around to your friends in class, and like I would incorporate all of them into like stories. And so back then it was like, um, again, I'm gonna date myself. New Kids on the Block were like a huge thing for me when I was growing up. So like late 80s. So, and I would put all of my friends
Yeah.
in it and I would pair them up with this person and this person in the group. And then they'd be like, what did you write today? And what did you write today? So it was like, I kind of always had this creativity, about writing and wanting to like that wish fulfillment thing, which I
Yeah.
think writing in and of itself can be that for a lot of people. And I think that's why romance is such a big thing in terms of that. Like, what would you like to see happen? But yeah, I started with Wattpad, but Wattpad's very different than even fanfiction.net, and then like Tumblr, and then like AO3 is like it's a whole other beast too. So
Oh
to have
yeah.
gone through a lot of different places where you can share your fiction, AO3 was really a bit of a learning curve for me. And I don't think I still really even grasp everything that you can do with it. So all that to say, if you're kind of new to fan fiction or you'd like to get into it, we thought we'd kind of like discuss a little bit about, well, what the heck is a tag, and what purpose uh, do they serve? And so I'm actually going to just like
Hmm.
read something from AO3, which AO3 has an awesome FAQ or manual where pretty much anything you want to learn about, you can just go to the about section FAQ, and you can find answers to your questions. It's been really helpful for me. But so then, Carly, was it like a big jump for you, like from those other types of sites you talked about to AO3, or was it kind of an easier like
No,
learning
it
curve?
was it was kind of seamless, to be honest, because the site I used, which I can announce because my username on there is different to my
Mhm,
username now. I was young, angsty, like 16, 15, 16-year-old.
mhm.
So the site I used was called Mibba, so it's Mibba,
Okay.
and it's kind of its layout wasn't like identical to AO3, but it was kind of similar in like how you would upload things and stuff like that.
Hmm.
I don't remember it having like a tag section though. I would have to go back and check.
Okay.
Um, but I'd spent quite a while reading stuff on AO3, so I had like a pretty good idea of how the tag system worked
Hmm.
um before I started uploading anything. So I was like, okay, I know how like the relationship things works, and I know the additional characters and the additional tags and stuff. So it wasn't a big learning curve. The issue for me came when it came to actually putting the tags and not being
Hmm.
sure what to tag and what not to tag. And
Hmm.
you always tag it and then you go away and you post it and then you're like, oh damn, I should have tagged this. Heck, I should have put that in. So
Yeah, I think it's always a learning process, which AO3 is forgiving that way, right? You can always go back in and edit and add and really change things up if you really want to. So that's the good thing. It's not set in stone. Whatever you do post, you have the ability to go back and edit and add and tweak, which I think after this episode, I think I really need to like go back and spend time on, some of my works and just be like, okay, let's actually try to get this right. Or if I say I want to do it a certain way, let me try to do that with all of the fiction that I put on there. So we'll see. We'll see if I actually follow through with that.
yeah.
But yeah, so from the AO3 site, which is Archive of Our Own, it says a tag is a keyword or phrase that provides information about a work and can be made by anyone creating content such as works or bookmarks on the Archive of Our Own. These tags are used to specify which rating, warnings, fandoms, categories, characters, and relationships apply. Other information can be added using additional tags. A lot of the main sections, I mean, they're pretty self-explanatory. The main ways that you can actually tag things, ratings, of course, you could do like general, teen, mature, explicit, and then warnings. Warnings are, I still have difficulty with the warnings one because I know some people use it a different way. Some people don't really pay attention to it, but then you can choose like no archive warnings apply. And then I know there's what like main, like a character death. Oh, what else is there? There's a lot of, there's like 3 or 4 really main ones, right? Like in the warnings.
I think it's creator chose not to use archive warnings. No archive warnings apply. Violence, major character death, and underage.
Okay.
I think.
So it's
I think those are the main ones.
Okay. And then there's, of course, the fandoms, which in and of itself, there's so many fandoms that you can pick from. So, of course, if we're, going by what our podcast is called, we're basically searching. I know I do. I know you have a lot of other fandoms that you like to explore, but mine's pretty much always going to be supernatural. And then categories. Why am I blanking on categories?
No, categories. No, that's like male, female,
okay,
female.
There we go.
Female, male.
There we go.
Multi.
Or general, which just means that there's not anything. Okay.
Yeah, and then there's that weird black one that's other as well.
Yeah. And then characters, of course, it's just the different characters that are in the fic and then the relationship. So this is where like I would focus more like when I'm like searching and filtering, because that could be like, that's basically whether it's like romantic, platonic, the different relationships that are occurring within the fiction. So it could be like Dean Winchester, and OFC, which for the longest I was like, oh, okay, original fictional character. I finally like that came to me pretty quickly. But or Dean Winchester reader. Of course, you can see where my head is. That's kind of where I'm always checking when I'm doing relationships and that. But then the focus of like our primary discussion is going to be the additional tags, where that's really where you can kind of get into sort of the meat about what the fiction is about. So it can be the ideas, the themes, the experiences that you can expect in the work. I know that we talked a little bit about the warnings, but I really don't think the warnings encompass a lot of different things. So I feel like the additional tag section is really used for, I think, warnings too. Like I've seen non-dub, which again, like sounds stupid, but I had to like look this stuff up. Like I didn't know what that meant, so it's like dubious consent, like the different things along those lines. So if there's something that might trigger a certain reader, I think a thoughtful writer or author is going to, add those into the additional tags, as well as probably put something in the notes, heading each chapter. If there's something in particular that's happening, they usually like put something in there, but it's definitely, I think, should be in the additional tag section as well. Because I was like, well, that the warnings main category in and of itself, I don't really think gives you enough options. So I'm usually, for me, it's always like, no archive warnings apply, because I just don't, I try not, there may be violence, but it's never like violence. Like it might be, I think one of the tags people use is like show level violence or something like that. So like you might, a vampire might get its head chopped off or something like that, or like different things along those lines, or there's going to be like fights and stuff, but it's not, so descriptive and to the point where, at least for me, that I always feel like those kinds of things, you can sort of give an outline and then people can fill in the blanks based off of what their comfort zone is. That's kind of how I've always approached horror, the complete opposite of the sex parts, but that's how I do that.
Absolutely. I personally, I've never had cause to use the warnings, so I always have no archive warnings apply. That's mostly because I don't want people to walk away from my fics being sad. Like, you come to me and I'll give you like a nice fluffy, sexy experience.
Yeah.
But I do find them really helpful if I'm looking, you know, if you're just like scrolling through or whatever, or like sometimes you feel like you've caught up with all the new stuff, so you think, hey, I'll sort by a different filter and see what comes up. And then I'm immediately like, exclude rape, non-con, exclude underage, because I don't want to read that.
Yeah.
Especially if you're looking in Wincest stuff. Man, there's so much underage stuff in there. So much underage stuff in there.
Oh,
and
yeah.
sometimes it just means like Sam might be like just below the age of USA consent. And then sometimes it's like Sam's like 12 and I'm like, oh,
okay.
No.
Yeah.
No, that makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's helpful, right? It definitely lets you, which I think is good because it has a community where, you know, everybody can sort of, I guess, really find what they want as long as they're as specific and niche-y, you know, as possible. Then it's like, okay, well, you know, if that's what I'm looking for, that's what I can find. But yeah, I have been, I think as I continue to learn about different types of fiction, I'm like seeing different tags and being like, okay, well, that's what that is going to mean, and that's what that's going to mean. So it definitely helps find things.
Yeah, I've had to Google some stuff as well.
Yeah, see, I don't feel too bad then because like, I don't know what that is.
Did you know there's a word that means you gain sexual arousal from someone else crying?
Is that one that starts with an S?
No, it starts with a D. It's like dacrophilia, something like that.
Okay.
But I saw that quite a few times and I was like, the fuck does that mean?
Yeah, there's
and then
one
I Googled it and I was like,
oh. There's one that starts with an S and I haven't looked at it yet. I haven't like looked it up yet. We had
not somnophilia, is it?
Yeah, what is that? And why do I not know what that is?
That's being aroused by sleeping people or fucking sleeping people.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, look, hey, you come to our podcast to listen to us rant about supernatural, and we out here teaching you about weird paraphilias, guys.
Because it's a big circle. It all comes back again. Oh, so anyway,
but like, those are super helpful because I'm like, I don't mind people crying, but I don't want to read about people sleeping.
Yeah,
like that just doesn't sit right with me.
And I'm sure like, there's degrees of it, right? Like, I mean, they might put it in there, but it's okay. All right.
But sometimes it depends very much. It's all in context, but then like sometimes that can be someone starting something while the other person's asleep, and then they wake up and they're like, "Hey, yeah, let's bone." Right. And then sometimes it's like, "Hi, I drugged the other person," and they're absolutely comatose.
Yeah. So that's where you would hope there's some sort of like major warnings that apply with that. Yeah, and along with that. Okay.
Yeah. There you go. Look, I'm the font of the weird tags.
So I mean, in terms of, I was saying to you earlier, like I couldn't sleep, so I went on to Google and I started like typing some of my thoughts about, you know, tags, and kind of like I approached them as, okay, like they could be sort of like a recipe where it's a list of all the things that you need to create something, or it's a menu, you know, what you're in the mood for, and then that's where you can get into searching and filtering. So for me, I know that, again, I'm pretty basic in terms of how I start my filters, but I'll usually go rating and then maybe relationship. I found if I put too many things, I like excluding things more than including. I found that if you exclude, I think it gives you a little bit of a better result. Like if you exclude certain relationships or ratings, and then from there, you can kind of add, you know, tags that you're looking for. You can just kind of like scroll through and get an idea and then start to go that way. I don't know how you approach it, if you approach it the same way.
I tend to exclude all the things that I don't want. Like I say, I'll exclude things that like rape, non-con. I'll exclude underage and stuff. And then I tend to use the additional tag search on AO3 for like, you know, if I'm in the mood for a specific thing. So yeah, I will say one of the only search feature I think lets down a little bit of AO3 is if you search by category. Like you're like, I only want to look at like male female stuff. I only want to look at like male stuff, whatever. if the fic is tagged as multi, it will still come up. And I'm like, but I don't want to read that.
Okay.
I'm not here for that.
Okay.
So that's
Interesting.
a pitfall I run into
Yeah.
quite a lot. But yeah, I'm the same as you. I exclude all the stuff I don't want, and then I'll sort of I'll look through what's left, or if I've got like an idea in my mind, I'll be like, I want to find something that's got this in it. Then I'll use AO3's additional tag search.
Yeah.
Which is super, super helpful.
So when you've like been, so your experience writing and posting, just did you start off pretty basic? Because I know that just in general, I am very basic with my tagging, and I need to get better at it. So I'm like it's like it's if it's fluff or smut or angst or that I kind of like put that in and then maybe some other things and then I kind of call it a day. So was that how you were in the beginning and have you gotten better with it or?
Yeah, I'm looking back at like my early kind of stuff. So like the first thing I posted that wasn't our collab was just like smut, fluff and smut, established relationship, oral sex, vaginal sex. Sandwich just as filthy mouth, which is a tag of my own creation, and I'm very proud of it. And then I went back like quite recently and added an AU tag onto that. But when I first uploaded it, that was all that it was. And then if you look at my latest one, the one which is need, and that's like tags for days, y'all, days and days and days. Because I started out tagging just what was in it. If there's oral, I'll put oral in it. If people fuck, I'll put people fuck in it. You know, I'll just put what's in it. And then as I went through, and I was like, it came more as I started searching for more, like specific things for myself. And then I was like, oh well, I should put this in, and I should put this in, and I started to tag for like the general vibe of the work as well, and like the themes that I was going for. So like, for need, my latest one, I've got like. Sam Winchester needs a hug. Sam Winchester needs to use actual words. And obviously that's not anything that happens in the fic, but that's the vibe of the fic. That as with all things Winchester, y'all need a therapist. Boys, please, you need a fucking therapist. That's what it is. So I like, yeah, as I sort of started to move towards, not just tagging things that happen, but tagging like the theme of the work and like the sort of what sensations and feelings I'm trying to inspire through the work as well, instead of just being very straightforward about it. But it's hard. It is hard. It takes me longer to tag a work, I feel like, than it takes me to write it sometimes.
Yeah, that's true. I think that's why you have to constantly go back and edit and just kind of, or just like put it out there and then let it sit for a little bit and then maybe go back to it. It's kind of just like with editing in general. If you write something, you don't necessarily just want to go right back into it, and pick it apart or just let it sit, put it out of your mind for a little bit and then come back. I think that helps. That's why I said I think that's what I'm going to try to do on my end, because like I said, I think the themes are a big thing that I don't probably put in enough. So that's probably something that I need to kind of go back and do. I was thinking about just how people searching, and if they're really experienced with AO3, then they really might be missing out on certain fictions that have all of those things, but they're just not tagged that way, and it's like, so then I think they can get buried under a lot of other stuff that you're like, I don't, this isn't really kind of what I want, or even just like the quality of it. So one of the previous episodes that we did, I highlighted Professional Distance, which I think you said you finally got a chance to. Did you finally read that?
I did read it, and there's like about 3 tags on it. Like, what the hell?
Yeah. And I was just like, and I mean, she did another one that's got really a huge amount of hits, and just, well, a human female, again, I'm assuming it's a she, but we'll say they, but just in terms of what they've been putting out there, I think is really great writing, but like this one just isn't getting the views that it should get. So I went back and I was like, okay, I looked at it and it said, yeah, it was like one tag. It was like alternate universe. I think in the additional tag section. So I
Yeah.
was like, okay, well, if I was like gonna promote this, like what would I add, in there? So, I came across there's an editor Dean Winchester tag. There's flirting, which of course there's a lot of in it, romantic fluff. Point of view Dean Winchester, because it's primarily all through his point of view. None of
Hmm.
it's from Donna's, like slow burn, eventual smut. And there's a
Oh,
romance
I
novel
hate that
tag,
tag.
you know. Eventual smut or slow burn? Which one do you hate?
Slow burn. Slow burn. I'm not about that delayed gratification life. Give me it now. No, 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 no. I hate that. I hate that.
So
But
then,
also,
yeah.
it's
Go
worth
ahead.
bearing in mind
Mm-hmm.
if you are uploading to AO3, you can make your own up. You don't have to use
Mm-hmm.
what it
Right.
suggests. Like
Mm-hmm.
Sam Winchester's filthy mouth. That's mine.
Mm-hmm.
If you click on that, if you're looking at any of my works and you click on that, it will only bring you up my works because nobody uses it apart from
Mm-hmm.
me.
Mm-hmm.
But that's like I make Sam have a filthy mouth in my fix. So, and you
Mm-hmm.
should be aware of that because some people don't necessarily like that kind of dirty talk. So
Mm-hmm.
that might put somebody off. So
Mm-hmm.
you need to be aware that there be filth in here,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? So
Mm-hmm.
if you don't feel like the tags are conveying what you want them to convey, make your own.
Mm-hmm.
I do that all the time. Like I'll put um I'll tag something and then I'll put after it like kind of or sort of, because
Mm-hmm.
it's like it's there, but it's not, maybe it's not traditional
Mm-hmm.
in that kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
Like something you see in a lot of my works is mild breath play. Mild
Mm-hmm.
breath play is not an established tag on AO3. If you search for it, you just get breath play.
Mm-hmm.
But I always tag it as mild because it's not traditional. It's
Right.
more just like skirting on the edge of it
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
than anything formal, I suppose.
Yeah.
So make your own up. If you're thinking about posting to AO3 and you think, oh god, I don't have a clue how to even begin,
Mm-hmm.
look at some of the more traditional ones. Think about what your work has in it. Is
Mm-hmm.
it just a nice fluffy story or is it smutty? Okay, so tag it fluff, tag it smut, tag it. There's a fluff and smut tag.
Yeah.
Tag it there. Tag it like that. But if you've put something in your story that you think's really original and really unique, tag it because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of us we read those tags before we click on your work. I know I
Mm-hmm.
do
Yeah.
because there'll be tags like the somnophilia one. I'm out
Mm-hmm.
on that one. Sorry to any fanfic writers that might be reading. They're like, hey, I love that kink. You go ahead and love that kink. I'm not
Yeah.
kink shaming. I
Yeah.
just don't. It just
Yeah.
doesn't vibe with me.
Yeah.
But whatever you feel is unique about your fic, whatever's really important to you to get across that goes, hey, this has got this in it, read it. If it ain't there, make it.
Mm-hmm.
And tag every fic you ever write with that if that's a constant. Just go for it. You can make up your own tags. You don't
Mm-hmm.
have to stick with the ones that AO3 gives you.
Do you think there should be like, because I know one of the gripes I have is a fic that's got like 100 tags on it. Like I almost feel like if you can get things tagged, and it depends again, right? It depends on how long of a I guess a fiction it is. If you are going to maybe go the route of like every time you add a new chapter, you add some more things. But like if I see a fiction that's got almost like a page of tags, it's like, oh, I've stopped at like the third or fourth line in, and I'm just like, so I feel like whatever the bulk of your story is, if you can condense
Mm.
that, like unless it's really specific, and like you said, you've got specific tags, but like I almost feel like if you can tag it within like maybe even like 15 to 20, even if it's a really detailed story, I almost feel like the more the tags, it just kind of it overwhelms me. I don't know if you get that sense, but I just get overwhelmed
Yeah.
by all of that. And I'm like, maybe this isn't for me. And then I do see that there's the different, people doing their own or almost like a sentence long tag. And again, sometimes I'm like, okay, that some of them are cute, but then some of them I'm like,
Yeah.
this is just kind of like free range thought just kind of gone wild, like with tags and stuff. So I don't know. I like to know what I'm experiencing, but I also don't always want to get spoiled. And sometimes I feel like too many tags can
Mm.
spoil when you're really trying to build
Yeah.
up some sort of there's a twist or there's another part to the story. So I kind of like when I'm writing, if there's a character that maybe doesn't pop up for a while, I might wait until that character shows up and then I go back and I put them in, because I figure if people are reading along with when I'm posting, then I'll insert that after, that character pops up, or something along those lines. But yeah, I didn't know how you felt about how many is too many. Is there a point when you should
I'm
say
exactly
no?
the same. I'm like, tag the important things. Basically, the rule I live by is, if you would be surprised by it in a fic where it wasn't tagged, tag it.
Mm-hmm.
That's my go-to rule. If that turned up in a fic when I wasn't expecting it, and I would be like, oh no, I didn't know that was going to be a thing, tag it. So, like, again, for an example of me, I always tag if there's anything to do with spit or saliva in any of my works. I always tag it, because if that comes up to me unexpectedly, I'm like, no, because I have issues. I have issues around that. So I'm like, that would bother me. Yeah. So I need to warn people. Generally speaking, if you're posting a one shot, tag what happens. So again, somebody goes down on somebody, throw an oral tag sex in there. If they fuck, throw that in there. Tag what happens. But once you've tagged it, you don't need to keep going over it. So if it's a multiple chapter fic, if you've tagged oral sex, you don't need to keep tagging it. It's in there. People are expecting it. So try and tag the important things, but try and keep it concise. Which
almost
I know
like
is
all the different ways that you can, like, because again, like, pick if it's oral fixation, oral sex, or like there's all these oral, like, you got to pick like one or two that kind of like really meet your parameters for your story, because if you put everything, but then do you put everything in because, well, maybe somebody's only going to be looking for one of these things, but then I'm almost like, well, then it should sort of match up, if there's a specific thing. Like, to me, oral fixation is much different than oral sex. Yes. They go hand in hand with Dean Winchester, in my opinion, so I would probably put them both in there. But some people might just be, it's just an oral fixation, and that's a very specific fic than something else. So yeah, it's interesting, right? Because everybody comes at it differently. So it's kind of getting into the mindset of like what your favorite author, how they write and how they tag, and then you kind of know when you've gone back to them again and again. You know what you're in for when you see that tag, but you don't really know it until you find the author. So it's one of those, like, it's that quest that it's like, oh my gosh, like when I find an author and I love their work, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, they've written so many more. I just get like, yay, happy dance, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I know I'm going to enjoy and have like a whole library of stuff that I get to go back to. So, and it's kind of, and then it's a disappointment, when somebody's only written like 2 things, and I'm like, oh man, but
man, please post more. Yeah, I'm the same. If you jump to an author's profile in AO3 and it's like 20 odd fics, and you're like, hello, and you've hit subscribe to the author, so if they update anything, you know about it. And I'm looking at it going, oh, you're going to be opening my tabs for a while we work through this. Do you know, it's really funny you saying that about oral sex, because when I tag birthdays, or I tagged your fic, because I'm looking at my AO3 page now, and then we've got like oral sex, oral fixation. Dean Winchester gives oral sex, which I didn't know was a tag until I wrote that fic.
I knew that was a tag.
I didn't know that was a I didn't think about it. I just didn't think about it.
See, it's specific, right? Because it's like, if you put oral sex, it's like, well, it could be either way, right? But if you're looking for something where oral fixation, Dean Winchester.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what you're gonna find,
I'm pretty sure there's probably a tag that says like Dean Winchester has an oral fixation or something.
Oh yeah, there is. There does.
Yeah, exactly. So it's all about context. Do you want to just generically tag, hey, there be oral sex in this fic, or do you want to be like, this is a fic with Dean Winchester, and as we all know, your boy got an oral fixation. So this is the oral sex in this fic is 100% focused on Dean Winchester and his oral fixation, and it's a constant. It's like you never wake up one day and you'll be like, right, I am the master of tags on AO3 now.
Yeah,
I still post things, walk away and go, oh bloody hell, I should have tagged it with that son of a gun.
Yeah,
I still go back and I add things in, and I'm like, oh no, that should be relevant and that should be relevant. It tends to be more like AU stuff. I forget to tag if things are like AU or Canon a lot of the time.
Yeah, and
So
I don't
yeah.
even do that a lot either. I guess because I'm just always a couple tags I found that again, like through research and stuff, is like I do like canon related fiction, like or based off of what's happened in canon. And I have an interest in specific episodes. And I've noticed, and I didn't know this was a thing, but like you can like start typing in like the name of an episode, and more likely than not, at least supernatural, like you'll find
Hmm.
fiction that's related to that. Well, I didn't know that. That was like something I just came across because I saw fiction that I liked. I'm like, oh, they actually have this season and the episode number and then the name of the episode in it. And then if we clicked on it, I'm like, oh wow, this person or other people have used that tag and they've people are really interested in this one episode, and maybe like I didn't know what coda was. Like that's sort of like, the epilogue. Like so if like an episode ends
Hmm.
and then I didn't know that. And I'm like, oh, okay, great. So now there's another thing that I can explore. Just like maybe how we're always like, oh, this is what we think happens, at the end or at the end of an episode. And some people have explored that, and that's fun to read. So I've just
Hmm.
I kind of wish there were rules, but I understand why there aren't. But I almost wish that there was like a way that you could have, tell people like, look, like list these tags based on how often they show up in a fic. Like, if you've got 60% angst or 30% fluff and 10% smut, like, you
Yeah.
kind of give us an idea of what we're in for. So I don't know. It's very interesting that way, in terms of how you can go
Yeah.
about it.
I definitely think, I mean, obviously me and Sandra, we come at this from different things because she tends to write sort of longer stories and I tend to write more one shots because I can plot and characters very well. And she's like the master mistress question mark at it. So I do think, like, I look at your tags and I think it must be so much harder to tag like an ongoing story. And as you say, you don't want to spoil things, but you need to, like, maybe there's things you need to warn your readers about or make them aware that, hey, this is a multi-chapter fic, but there be sex in here.
Hmm.
It's not
Hmm.
just, it's not all plot and no porn.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
I do think I do think it's harder. My get around for that is I tag chronologically if I'm writing something with more than one chapter, which doesn't happen very often.
Hmm.
But when I do, I post chapter one with all the tags that are relevant to chapter two. And then as we go down the line, I'll post chapter two and I'll update the tags. And then there'll usually be a note that says, like, please heed the updated tags, or, make sure you've checked because
Hmm.
it's relevant,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
So it's, but I mean, from my point of view, if you're writing like sort of one shots or very short things that are focused around like a moment
Hmm.
instead of a story, which is what I tend to write, if you would want it tagged in something you were reading, tag it in your work. Like, you
Right.
can't go wrong with that. No one's ever going to say, "Hey, you tagged this," and it's only like a tiny sentence. There was no need for you to tag it, because I
Hmm.
guarantee there's someone else out there going, "Oh, thank God they tagged that. I'm so glad that I wasn't
Yeah.
surprised by that."
Yeah, I think you mentioned like when you're talking about it's like yeah, like just things that you think might be triggering, I think are important too. Cause again, like but that's a learning experience, right? Like so some people just don't have that mindset. I don't know if it's empathy or sympathy, like, just to understand that where you're coming at, somebody else might be coming at totally different. And they might like a story up to a point, but then something hits them, they could pass over that, and then that's kind of where notes ends up helping too, like at the start
Mm-hmm.
um, of a chapter or, an additional part. When you're talking about multi-chapter and long fics, there's one author that I've read a lot of their stuff, Crash Devil. I think it's CJ Devlin because I wrote it down. CJ Devlin 19. I think the author has a lot of different pseudonyms and stuff, but they'll actually create almost like a series where they use the parts as chapters. So you have a little more freedom to really kind of drill down in the specific parts with the tags. I thought that was interesting. A
That's a
different way
good.
to
I
do it.
like that.
I don't know if I'd have, maybe like if I do, I don't think I will, but if I do another long one again, I might try to do that. But then I think you have to have a good bulk of your story written, or at least like an idea of where it's going and then like how you'll break it up. They tend to write really long parts. Like it could be like, well, to me, 8 or 9,000 words is a long part. Like
Oh
my
yeah.
chapters are usually maybe like if I'm really feeling it, maybe 2 or 3 2,000 words. I know that some people go more, but yeah, I thought that was an interesting way to do it. So another way, and again, that's really when you get into more of like how you set up your fiction. So it might be worth looking into, thinking about it beforehand, like, well, where am I going with the story? How many parts do I think it is? Is it worth breaking it up to give people more of an idea of tags based on the parts rather than just this big long list of things that are going to happen in the story? Or, use notes. And if people are used to the way you write, they'll know to, see the notes at the top of each chapter and figure out what's going on that way. So, there's a lot of ways to do it. So it's good. So I wanted to talk about fun tags we've come across. And I know I wrote some down and you've got some.
Yep, I got some.
So one I wanted to shout out was our friend Dee, her rookie series. I think it's Hunter in Training is the very first one. It's like every chapter is smut was like one of her tags. I was like, oh great, exactly what you're in for. When you go into this, that you're in for some fun stuff every time.
Yeah, that'd be no filler. We fucking absolutely.
Yeah. And then I think going into my oral fixation, I wrote Dean Winchester as a champion pussy eater because he really is.
Because he
and
is,
when I saw that, I was like, oh, that's so great. And I saw this one and I just thought of you. I didn't even read what the story was about, but it says knitwear kink. And then all the knitting Sammy, give me all of it.
I think I've seen knitwear kink somewhere. I think I've seen that. I should tag my Christmas fic as that because I dressed Dean up in that really cute sweater.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, knitwear kink. I think that's a good one you should add there.
I'm gonna put that into Step Into Christmas now. That's a cute one. I like that one.
And then there was one called Denial Ain't Just a River in Egypt, because I think that's a really big theme that goes along a lot of supernatural, denying and just like all of that. There was
we
one
need therapists.
There was one helping Dean eat healthier, which then the tag was immediately followed by another that said carrot as dildo. I was like, all right, well, I don't know what that's about, but I thought that.
I mean, you can't argue with that though. To be fair, that's very clear. You'd be like, there'd be healthy food, and then we'd be fucking with the healthy food. You can't argue with that, really. They're great. I only threw up a few for mine. So I've got Team Dean Winchester's red ass, which is that's so image invoking, isn't it?
It is.
I love it so much. You tend to see that more in male fics featuring Dean. You don't tend to see that so much in like Dean reader fics or Dean original female character fics.
Mm-hmm.
But it tickles me every time I see it. I believe there's even a collection on AO3 that anyone can post into that's tagged Team Dean Winchester's red ass.
Okay. And is it just mainly is a lot of it like just spanking and different things like that? I mean, that's what I get, but is there something more to that? Okay. All right.
No, it's just like we all queue up to beat Dean Winchester's ass red raw. Love it. I've also got Sam handling, which I've only ever seen in one fic apart from mine, and I started using it because I'd seen it in another fic. Mm-hmm. But it was the perfect tag for one of my particular kinks around Sam, which is the fact that he's so much bigger than you, and he could just pick you up and move you around and throw you in various different places. And I was like, I don't know how to tag this because it's not a size kink. That's like a different thing.
Right. Just how he like manhandles you, only it's Sam handling. So yeah, no, exactly. I totally get it. Yeah.
So it's Sam handling, and this next one, it's not sexy in any way, but it makes me smile every time I see it, which is John Winchester's A+ parenting, which usually means that fic is going to contain everybody dunking on John for being such a shit human being, and I'm well in for that. I'm like, oh, screw you, John, screw you. I saw one the other day, which was John Winchester doing my favorite thing, being dead. And I was like, oh, that's perfect. That's great. I love that so much. I'm going to start using that. I'm going to tag my Christmas fic with that one as well. And then the last one I've got, again, which just came up on one particular fic, but it tickled me so much, is they fuck in a church, I'm sorry. The tag was all in capitals. The tag was all in capitals, and I was like, oh, that's great. I love it. I have since bookmarked and reread that fic several times. So drop a link to that in the description as well, because y'all need to read it. It's good. They fuck in a church. I'm not sorry.
So then what we decided to do was we said, okay, so let's take a look back at like our history, things we've bookmarked, and like figure out, is there a theme to our fave tags and stuff like that. So I kind of hinted at some of mine, but so like when I went through AO3, pretty much Dean Winchester original female characters. I do have some male characters one, but that's like by far, I think I enjoy that more than Reader, even though, like I said, I have gotten into Reader more, where it's the you point of view, and I do like that more. I'm getting more and more into that. And then Friends to Lovers is another one. Porn with plot / porn with feelings. I kind of I gotta have some plot around my porn. I mean, sometimes it's just like that. More likely than not, that's what I go for. Like I like a little bit of a build up, and then what's happening, and then you know go into it. But I like shameless smut. I like dirty talk. Mark of Cain, Dean Winchester is an especially favorite one of mine. When he just gets so angry and he just has to get rid of it, and he has to like get it out some way, and it usually involves a female. I really like that.
Yeah. Hey, no judgment. We don't kink shame here. That's great.
And then oral. And it's MOC. Usually if you type in MOC, it'll come up usually right away. Oral fixation / oral sex. But again, like usually anything that involves Dean Winchester and oral sex in the tag is a good go-to for me. I didn't think I liked this, but like daddy kink, but it has to be like, it's like Dean. I've read a couple that have Jensen, but there's just something about, I guess, not really, I don't know if it's that or if it's just him being sweet and saying, and this might be a D thing that's gotten me into, is like saying baby girl. I like that. Or good girl. You did that. Did you do that for me? You did that for me.
Yeah, I did that one.
And then I'm big on nipple play. We've had many discussions on Dean Winchester's perky nipples, and just in general anything he does with nipples I'm all about. And then the new one.
quick insider tip there. If you go and read anything of mine and it features anything to do with nipples, especially Dean's nipples or male nipples, that's just a little like fan service for Sandra. Yes. And if you go and read anything of hers that features Sam and his hair, he tends to run his hands through his hair a lot in Sandra's fictions, and that's just for me. That's a call out
for Karlee.
We just shout each other out in our fics because it's just such a thing now that we're like, hair, nipples, yes. Which sounds weird when I say it out loud, but that's the reality, isn't it? Because we'll go and comment and we'll be like, I saw the hair thing. Was that for me? Yes.
I kind of understand why the boys wear layers, because I feel like if they didn't, Sam especially too, like if they didn't wear layers to like hide all that, like you just would constantly just be like, what is going on there, guys? Like I can't focus on anything that you're saying, because there's just so many ridges and curves and things that I just want to like explore heavily. But yeah, I think they do. I think they do that just so we'll actually focus on a little bit more of what's going on with the storyline. And then the last one I found was sex pollen, which is an interesting thing where it's almost like there's a spell that's been cast and they have to have as much sex as possible, need to get it out of their system. And usually, it's Dean helping out the reader, or sometimes Dean and Sam. Those I really like. Those don't have a lot of plot, but I like those. So, but Karlee, some of your favorite tags, because you were talking about depravity when you were messaging me. I'm like, it's all about depravity sometimes. Let's just go.
Yeah, I wrote my tag list down, and then I was like, oh my god, what does this say about me? So I actually went to my bookmarks, and I looked at the most frequent tags. I sorted it by supernatural because, like Sandra says, I dabble in a few other fandoms as well. So I didn't want that skewing the results in any way. But then I looked at like the top sort of tags that come up in mine. So number one was dirty talk, which, if you can't tell by the fact I tag my works in that way, you write what you know, isn't it? I like reading that. I know that. That's fine. Yep. So we got dirty talk. And then in direct contrast to Sandra, I'm porn without plot or plot what plot. I don't care. I don't need anything extra just play with each other's genitals. That's all I'm here for. I don't need any kind of background on this at all. So that's for me. And then we've got blowjobs, which surprised me actually when I was going through. But then I was like, I do tend to read more male stuff than like reader or original female character stuff. So probably that's why that comes up so high.
Okay.
We got rough sex again. You write what you know. I read what I like. Smut, AU, sex toys. Don't really know how I feel about that one coming up there. Praise kink, which is, oh man, I love that. I'm surprised that isn't higher actually, because I love that one. And then I've got dom and sub undertones on mine. So, you know, Sandra's quite wholesome with her stuff, and I'm like filth. We're just filth.
Well, I think it's because, I mean, you've talked about like write what you know, and I mean, quite honestly, like I haven't, you know, had those kinds of experiences, and I haven't really like delved into it much. I think I will say, my God, supernatural fan fiction has opened my eyes to many different things, and I am quite happy with that. You know, and made things that I would be like, what? Like, you know, more like, oh, okay, this is a thing, and this is kind of a hot thing. So yeah, no, I've learned to appreciate more things. The praise kink. So talk to me about that one though, like a little bit more. Like, what about the praise kink? Is it praise all around? Is it praise, you know?
You know, it's very similar to, you were like, when you like your daddy kink, and you're like, I don't really think it's that. I think it's more like the pet names and the sweet names, like baby girl, good girl. It's that kind of stuff, but it's just like being told that you're doing something good. It's just nice, you know? I just like it. I don't know. And I mean,
especially if Sam and Dean are saying it. I mean, that's like kind of a thing. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's just, I don't know, there's just something about, like, I've never enjoyed, like, because dirty talk in the bedroom, it tends to go one of two ways, doesn't it? You either go, oh my God, you're so good at that, or you're so nasty, dirty, whatever.
Yeah.
And that kind of, that really puts me off. Like, any kind of humiliation talk, I'm not here for that at all. I really don't enjoy it.
Right.
But I do like to read people talking in the bedroom. Like, it's not a silent act.
Right.
You know?
Absolutely. We've talked about this. Like, I want to hear Dean. I don't want him being silent in any way, shape, or form in the middle of any of that. Like, that's a whole part of the process.
Exactly.
I really don't like it. And this is a thing. Like, I don't like blindfolds, and I don't like necessarily like not being able to hear that. Like, you know what I mean? It's like that would be torture for me. And I know some people like that, but that's not for me. Like, I want to hear, you know, I want to hear it. It's important. It makes you, it puts you in the scene rather than just reading it. You know, you get all the senses kind of working together. And yeah. And I'm with you on the, when it starts to get into humiliation or degradation, I don't like that. There's some uses of a word that don't have to like go into that nasty territory. And I think sometimes some fiction does that. And that's when I kind of like, oh, you had me and now you lost me. And I don't think I'm going to be able to finish, you know, the story now.
Yeah.
It's kind of like it's going into an avenue that doesn't really appeal to me, or that I kind of don't like. Even with Mark of Cain, Dean, like I feel like he could, you know, go that route, and he has in some, you know, things that I've read, but it's not exactly it's not my favorite thing. So yeah. Again, specificity, right? You kind of want to try to be specific about your about how you tag, because that kind of helps a lot. Somebody's version of dirty talk may be different than yours, I think. So
yeah, absolutely. So it's just like another part of the creating an experience when I'm writing, and it's, you know, it adds to the experience. If I'm I want to hear my characters talk, and I want them to be nice to each other, you know. I don't like you said, I'm not here for humiliation, degradation. And a lot of people get off on that. And again, we're not kink shaming in any way,
Right.
shape, or form.
Right.
It's just not for me personally. So I go the other way and I'm like, tell me how good I'm doing.
Yeah.
Let me have my characters tell each other how great it is. Because I just think, again, I don't ever want people to walk away from my fix personally being sad. I always want you to walk away like, man, that was great. I really enjoyed that. I feel less stressed, or I feel comforted, or whatever you might come to the fic for. And I never want them to walk away going, oh. So everybody's nice to each other in my stuff. I feel like,
yeah, I was gonna ask, is aftercare something that comes up a lot in your fiction that you like to read? Is that like a prominent tag? Because I know you're kind of big on that. And
yeah, I tag it and I write it. If I'm writing just something that's not particularly kinky, I don't always tag it, because I just, a lot of my fics tend to feature my characters going to sleep afterwards. They tend to take place in the nighttime, and then everybody's going to sleep afterwards. So for me, like that, in just a normal sexual scenario, that's a form of aftercare, isn't it? You know, everybody gets cleaned up, or maybe you don't get cleaned up, maybe you shower in the morning, whatever. But the deed is done, and then you have a cuddle. So that's it for me. I don't necessarily feel the need to tag that necessarily. But if it's anything kink, I will tag aftercare, with the exception of that one Dean fic. But then I didn't write an ending for that. I finished it immediately after the sex. Okay. So you can imagine what happens after that.
Yeah.
But for especially the Sam stuff that's been going up recently, that's been heavier aftercare. If you're gonna play with kink, you should be writing aftercare, unless you're making it a point that one of your characters sucks. And, you know, maybe this is slightly one-sided, you know, maybe this is not a healthy relationship. If you're coming at it from that angle, then of course you don't have to write that.
Right.
But if you're writing healthy kink, you should be writing aftercare. It doesn't have to be a big thing. It can be like a couple of lines. I've got stuff that's a couple of lines, but the key there is you should not be leaving a submissive character alone after you've written a scene. You should be giving them aftercare, and you should be advocating for that to be a big thing.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Because as much as it shouldn't be, people who read kink tend to take that as the Bible on kink. 50 Shades of fucking Grey. So how many relationships out there read 50 Shades of Grey and were like, oh yeah, no, we'll try this, and it went horribly, horribly wrong, because that book is a manual on how to abuse your partner. Yeah. So for me, I always think, if anybody's coming to my works, I'm kind of an advocate then, and I should be pointing them in the right directions. So always tag your stuff. If you do safe and consensual, tag it that way. If you play with risk-aware consensual kink, tag it that way. You know, try and make sure that you've always included if you're trying to portray a healthy kink scene, tag those things. Make sure you've got your aftercare in there. Tag those things, because whether you like it or not, there probably is somebody out there who's taking your work as the way to do something. Yeah. So try not to steer them in the wrong direction. But yeah.
No, all good suggestions, all good ideas. I think that's a great way to do it.
Yeah. And aftercare doesn't have to be, as I said, it doesn't have to be like a big thing. You have to write a whole other chapter on aftercare. Just the crucial things are, don't have one of your characters leave the sub alone afterwards. You know, sometimes they might like get a drink or get them something to eat. Sometimes it's just a physical contact thing, you know, that they don't leave them alone, that they stay with them until they come back to themselves.
Right.
So yeah, just be aware if you're posting that kind of stuff online, you kind of are an advocate for the community, whether you intend to be or not. So just be aware of it. Tag appropriately.
Okay, beautiful. Yippee-ki-yay, mother.
So this next fic recommendation comes from LittleGreenPlasticSoldier. They are just awesome. They've written 86 supernatural works on AO3. This one, okay, so I'm thinking this had to have been based off of the episode Dog Dean Afternoon. It was published in 2015, and it's 12,985 words, and it's called Yeah, I Have a Great Dean. It's rated explicit, no archive warnings apply, category female male, relationship Dean Winchester reader, Dean Winchester you, additional tags, animal transformation, fluff and smut, curse Dean, witch curses. It says originally posted on Tumblr, smut, oral sex, explicit sexual content, conolingus, doggy style, dog Dean, dog jokes. There's so much to love about this piece of fiction. It is so freaking cute. And I think the little bit that we saw in the episode Dog Dean Afternoon, where Dean is actually acting out a certain scenes, little mini scenes, like a dog, the author just went for it with this, and it's just so great. The summary is Dean is a good boy. Notes, going for my animal curse merit badge today. If you like animal transformation fics, I think you're really going to enjoy this one. This will actually lead into another recommendation by this author at another time that is much longer, but I think so worth it. Chapter 1. That's it. Just behind the ears. And never again shall I touch you, you God-forsaken thing. Finally, you can put that book away on the shelf forever, having scanned every creepy as soft page of human skin. Ugh. You sit back down at a library desk and scroll through the list to see what's next, but the front door slams and you think maybe you'll take a break since the guys are back. You hear Sam bellowing down the corridor. His unusual volume is curious. Then there's your name. It's kind of breathy, almost hoarse, and you assume it's Dean. There's some noise, like they're arguing, and you hear your name again in 2 parts. Your name. Dean must have some news. You push your chair back and turn to look at the platform, watching where they'll appear. Dean, Sam says sternly. No. Your name, Dean says again as he appears, and you smile at whatever it is that has him so excited. Sam calls your name, and he's right behind Dean, but not keeping up. Just hold your ground. Dean's scrambling down the steps, almost at the bottom. What? You call? Sam? Hold your ground. Dean hits the floor and starts running towards you, happy and galloping. You grip the chair to keep yourself still and can only watch as the most delighted Dean you've ever seen, with a bouncing, slack-jawed grin, leaps up the steps and gallops straight for you. Sam! You're calling for help. It's okay. Sam! Your name. Dean, you squawk, knees and hands up to defend yourself as he lands on you, all over you. What are you doing? Dean, Sam barks. Dean's landed on his knees between yours, his hands flumped onto your shoulders, panting your name, and licks you right up your face, chin to eye, over your ear. Dean, no! You try to push him off, but he's heavy and leaning, your arms almost pinned. He keeps licking, slurping wet stripes up your face, and you crane your neck to see Sam, his hopeless trot having stopped a few feet behind Dean. He's exasperated and sorry, hands landing on his thighs in defeat. Your neck and ear are getting ridiculously wet, even as you push on Dean's shoulders. Dean, get off me, you yell, and his next lick slides right over your mouth and beside your nose, flapping your upper lip as his tongue goes past. It's a tipping point. Dean, no! Down! He closes his mouth and looks at you in stunned silence. You look him in the eye, stern and dominant, point at the ground beside him and repeat, down, in your mom voice. He sits on his feet, puts his hands on the floor, and diligently awaits your next instruction as he licks his lips and teeth, resettling his tongue back in his head. You stare at him a moment, instinctively saying, good, but can't finish your words. God. Sam? You look up at him. Yeah. Which? Rowena. Yeah, he sighs. He's just missing the fur and the tail. Dean's chin falls open and he breathes, almost pants, while he watches you. And the fucking leash, you mutter? I am not putting a leash on him, he admonishes, coming around to the other side of the table to sit and hold his head. Seriously, he's been mind-melded with dogs, animals before, but never anything like this. It's completely incapacitating. He said my name. You look at Sam. Yeah, he uses words, but they're like representations of thought. No sentences, no human stuff other than that and the walking. It's like he's just acting exactly like a dog. In a kind of human way. Since when? Sam checks his watch. 3 hours ago. Hasn't changed or lessened at all. Has he eaten, you ask? No. Sam frowns, realizing he had prioritized getting home over everything else. Okay, you say, and lean over for your bottle of water. As soon as it's in view, Dean shuts his mouth and follows it with his eyes. Are you thirsty, Dean? You ask. But he's not listening because he clearly is thirsty and waiting for you to open the bottle. With the cap off, you offer it to him, just to see if he'll take it, but he ducks forward a little, watching the spout, expecting you'll tip it for him. Sam watches awkwardly as you tilt the bottle towards him, saying, Okay, here you go, and hope to God he'll wrap his lips around the mouth of it to drink, but he just gets himself under the flow and laps as it spills over his tongue and chin. Okay, no, Dean, you hold his jaw and look at him. Can you do this? You pout your lips, as if to drink, but he doesn't even look at them, just dutifully glances at your eyes a second before looking at the bottle again. So you give in and pour a slow trickle for him, your wincing gaze flicking between the dribbles on his chin and throat and the puddle on the floor. Oh, this is so bad, you groan. I can't believe I'm watching him do this. I know, Sam joins you, putting his forehead in his hand as he leans on the desk. Once Dean's taken enough, he settles back to sit, lapping and licking the water around his mouth. You put the bottle down and look at him with concern. Dean, you ask gently as he looks at you, are you in there? Nothing but solemn interest and patience. You wait 4, maybe 5 seconds, hoping you'll get something, but he just breaks into a soft, panting smile. He's like a fucking German shepherd, Sam, you mutter. Did she use words or a powder or what? Words, he groans, and I don't know them. A fucking woman, you gripe, sitting back and crossing your arms. What's he been like with you? Fine for a dog, Sam gripes, but yeah, he's been good, doing what I asked, keeping close. Wouldn't sit in the back, though. You try not to smile at Dean over that. It's such a curious thing to have him sitting before you, not watching you as such, but ready to. Sam goes on. He knew exactly where we were going, started saying your name before I opened the car door, and that was it. Listening to me was over. Right, you wonder. Happy to be home. Something like that, Sam sighs. You look at him, his butt sticking out as he waits idly for whatever's coming, blinking as his eyes look at nothing in particular. A sense of worry flickers in your chest. His complete lack of self-awareness makes him seem so vulnerable. You feel an overwhelming need to protect him from Rowena, from ridicule, from misfortune, clumsy accidents, heartworm. I can't help but think he might be able to see himself, you say, turning to Sam, like he's going to be absolutely mortified at these memories. I don't know whether to treat him like a dog or a Dean trapped inside the mind of a dog. I know. Sam leans his forearms on the desk. I'm the same. He's so completely doggish that I keep realizing I'm just responding like he is one. Sam tries not to smile, but he can't help but be amused because, as you've been talking, Dean has rested his chin on your knee, and you've run your hand back and forth through his hair a few times as you've been listening and talking. You look down at Dean, his eyes closed under your touch, and you yank your hand away in surprise. Shit, you whisper, and look at Sam cautiously. I, grew up with dogs. Yeah, he grins. You know what, though? He's probably mostly feeling like a dog, I suppose. I mean, he didn't try to drive. Let's just roll with Dog Dean and see if we can crack the curse. Yeah, okay, you say. I think some food is in order. Dean's head pops up on food, and you smile at him hesitantly, slightly self-conscious when you say, You got that, huh? You want something to eat? Dean stands as you stand and follows you closely as you head for the kitchen. I think he likes you, Sam comments. You roll your eyes back at him saying, Oh, can we keep him? You and Sam put some sandwiches together for yourselves and consider the options for Dean. Well, let's see what happens, Sam asks you. Go for it, you shrug and let Sam make a sandwich for Dean too. At the table, Dean tries to sit on the stool, but his knees and feet slide off the shiny surface. Then when he does try to eat, even as he topples around the seat, he puts his hands either side of the plate and drops his head, not even attempting to pick up the food. He can't seem to get enough stability to make a start. Okay, hang on, you say, unable to bear the scene anymore. You take his plate and put it by you on the floor. Here you go. Dean climbs off and moves himself around to face the plate, gets himself on all fours and picks up the sandwich with his teeth, tossing it back into his head as best he can and biting off chunks of bread. The plate clatters on the tiles as he picks up the fallen contents with his mouth. I can't watch. You close your eyes and sit straight, deciding to pretend he's not there. Sam seems stuck, riveted by the sight of his older brother on all fours and eating off the floor. Slowly he stares at you, still trying to take it in. Shit, Sam, he won't use his hands, you realize. Yeah, I noticed, Sam replies. Bathroom, you state. What the hell happens there? Sam drops his sandwich and rubs his face with his hands. For fuck's sakes, this is the worst. You know what? Let's put him in just boxers and a bathrobe. If it is cold outside, he probably won't even notice and just take him for a walk, you suggest? Sam sighs deeply and picks up his sandwich again. Yeah, that's probably easiest. Not like we're traveling anywhere soon. Just pretend like you're old already and he's lost his beans, you grin. Sam huffs a laugh, then breaks into a proper wheezing chuckle. Probably the closest we'll get to that, he says. There you go. Silver lining. Dean's finished his food and licked the plate clean, dragging it a foot or so along the ground before sniffing the floor a bit to check for crumbs. All done and finished, he drops on his side, facing your stool, and stretches his limbs, hands, and feet quivering at the reach. Sam gets up to make a drink, and Dean lifts his head to see where he's off to, dropping it back down when he's satisfied. He taps your ankle with slack fingers, kind of dragging his hand over it. What? You ask. He does it again and tilts his torso back, staring at you through lazy eyes. Seriously? You want me to rub your belly? You just ate. He leans his head on your foot again and blinks slowly, like, look at me. How can I go without someone rubbing my belly? You groan, kick off your shoe, and lightly rub his lower ribs with your socked foot, determined that this is the extent of your affection right now. He closes his eyes and tilts back further, his upper arm hinging off his chest as your action works his shirts up his stomach. You look up at Sam, something like a glare or a prayer, but instead of compassion, he says, Hey, I'm trying not to be offended here. He's all over you. I'm the one who's made the sandwich and doing the walks. He'll thank you later, you promise. When I started reading it again, I was like, oh, this has a lot of, just in terms of tags, but not even, again, like doesn't necessarily have all the tags, but once you start reading it, it's like, it's got those things that I tend to really like. So yeah, I Have a Great Dean. It's by LittleGreenPlasticSoldier.
Is this the one?
Go ahead.
Oh no, this is the one where they turn into a dog, isn't it? Because
yes.
I know there's one of these witchy ones where he wants to be a dog and he gets turned into a cat.
That's for me. That's another, because that's a long one. I mean, this is long, but that one's like a long novel like one, and that's by the same author. And I really do. I love this author, so I'll probably like pull them a few times. But yeah, that one's a totally different one that's so worth it. It's Toil and Trouble. And yeah, he gets turned into a cat, which I loved because I'm such a cat person. And I was just like, yeah, but that's a whole other thing. No, but when I found this one, so again, the basic storyline is I believe it's Rowena, and she's cast a spell on Dean, turned him into, a dog. So it kind of follows along, if you've seen the episode in season 9, like Dog Dean Afternoon, where he kind of does a lot of doggy things. It kind of like expounds on that and goes into a lot greater detail. So it's like, it's cute, then it's angsty, then it's fluffy, and then it's just hot. And I love the fact that it uses sort of like that trope that they do. Oh, here's a supernatural thing happening to one of the boys, and then they get to express, their true feelings, and then they have to deal with it, like that kind of thing, where it's him and the reader, and they have feelings for each other, but never really like went for it. And then him turning into this dog, basically, who's just like, the reader is like his favorite owner, which is kind of funny because like Sam is doing a lot of the things, sort of like helping to take care of it. And like, he's almost like Dean could care less. He's like, he's just all about, all about the reader. And there's a lot of visuals of Sam, like, doing things, that you would, do for a dog, just in general. And it's just cute. Like I highlighted a couple of things, like, just him yelling at Dean, just like running through the bunker and trying to get him to slow down. And then Dean like slamming into the reader. It's like, I can
visualize that.
It's like, and there's just, and like him being so happy in that carefree, like I like just all the fun doggy things, like, saying you want to go for a walk, and then him getting all excited, and just so many different things in this story that just give you like that visual. And the author's really great explaining and describing them, that you immediately get like, isn't especially wordy, doesn't have to be, kind of condenses it, but like just the thing of like the dog on like, resting his chin on your thigh, and just kind of looking at you, while you're eating. And like, I mean, could you imagine? Like, it's like the funniest thing. And like, I'm almost like, when he's running, is he like getting on all fours and kind of like doing that, like sort of like midway through, and then maybe like righting himself up again, but then like, just getting really like excited and huffing and puffing and like doing that snorty thing if he's mad, and all that kind of stuff comes up. And so the first part of it, again, like there's plot, them trying to figure out, okay, how did they reverse the spell? Doing a little bit of digging on it, trying to figure out what's happening. It's basically like a whole 24-hour process of that, but maybe like a bulk of the halfway through the story. And again, like the reader sort of like dealing with the fact that she's wanted this attention from Dean for so long, but she's getting it in this way that's very confusing. And like, it's like, oh, it's probably just a spell, and then, you've got Sam, ever loving Sam, that, just sees exactly what's going on with all the characters, and is like, how do you not see this? He likes you, and this is just his way of doing it. And
removed inhibitions. I like that. I'm drifting through because again, I am the woefully unprepared side of this little duo. So Sandra is the boss, and she's so organized, and she's just like, she comes to me before we record these things, and she goes, hey, so could you do this? And I'm like, yeah, no, I'll definitely do that. And then I spend the whole week not doing that. And then it gets to like the day before recording, and I'm like, oh shit, I got to do that. So Sandra posted that this was the fic she wanted to talk about, and then I did not click it or read it or anything. So again, I'm blind here.
It's a recommendation. So if you decide to read it again, or if you've read it already, that's great. Again, it's just like, it's one of my, I don't read it often, but when I go back to it, I was mentioning the Dog Dean Afternoon episode, which isn't like in season 9, but then I really get vibes of season 12. There's an episode called Regarding Dean, where he's lost his memory, where basically a witch has kind of done something similar, thrown a spell at him, where he's slowly losing his memory, and he's forgetting who he is. But almost in the process, at least in the very beginning, he's so unburdened by being a hunter, and like everything's like brand new, and he has this very like new approach to everything, and he just seems happy. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this boy has to lose, a part of himself to be happy. And it kind of sort of gives me that feeling. And Reader and Dean, you know, once the spell's gone, they sort of like have discussions about, you know, how he felt during it, and where he kind of was not necessarily like in the backseat, sort of not the way like a demon, say, you know, takes over your vessel, or even an angel does. He was aware of it, but it's on like sort of another level, and he didn't really have to think. It was just instinct, like, you know, and he just went by what made him feel good, you know, and Reader made him feel good. And then they, you know, they start that, and then the whole other half of the story is basically, you know, them coming to terms with it and going through the emotions, which are extremely hot, and the, you know, come to terms of it. And again, there's so many things in this. Like there's the oral stuff, there's the nipple play, which I was like, yay, I forgot this was in here. But it was like there's so many, like, but again, like more with Dean on the Reader, because that's another thing that I find really hot. Like anything he does with his mouth is just incredibly hot. So there's a lot of that. There's a little doggy style at the end, which is quite funny in terms of like the residual effect, where they're kind of like,
I'm scrolling through now and like looking at your notes, and then I'm like, man, I want you to recommend me fics with your annotations all the time, because these are great. You've highlighted a section where he says he's been a good boy and commented on it, and I'm like, I use that in my stuff. Yes. That's great. I love it. I will say though, this is one of those fics where, calling back to what I was saying about if it would bother you, tag it in your stuff. Okay, so I checked, there's no like spit or drool or anything tag in here, but it mentions it quite a lot, obviously, because Dean's a dog and dogs are gross,
right? Yeah,
cat people unite.
Yeah,
so you've commented, like highlighted a bit for me, like, and you've highlighted it from a lot of Dog Dean afternoon stuff, but I'm looking at it going, she's feeding him like with a fork, and then it's like, you notice the drool pulling around his tongue, but he doesn't notice, and I'm here gipping now, and I'm like, oh man, you gotta tag that stuff, like, drool and food, no, you gotta tag that stuff. And this is absolutely no offense to the author at all. Is like, as I'm scrolling through, I'm like, oh, shit, I gotta read this when we're done with this. It looks fantastic, but again, that's such a brilliant example of, if it would bother you in a fic, tag it in your stuff.
Gotcha.
You know?
Yeah.
It's just a little paragraph, and I'll be able to scroll past and it'll be fine. But just that image, I'm like, nope. I've got PTSD from weaning both of my children. Just no, because babies do this really great thing. For anyone out there who doesn't have children, when you're starting to wean a baby, especially if you're doing baby-led weaning, which is just giving them like real people food and letting them figure it out, babies do this really great thing where they will pick up a piece of food, put it in their mouth, chew it for a little bit, and then take it out and put it back on the plate. And I I had to walk away when it was my youngest son. I had to be like, Dad, you got to deal with this. Like, this is on you now, because I physically will vomit over our child. Oh, goodness. If you want to wean him this way, you got to do it. So,
well, now I know, especially like the specifics too. So if there's ever another FicRec, I can let you know if something comes in that's in play that way. See, this is good. This is how you figure stuff out.
Yeah. That was learning, isn't it? But I honestly, I can't wait to go and read this, because it just looks, honestly, like we said, I knew the fic about
through. Yeah, you should be good halfway through if you kind of want to skirt over a lot of like the doggy bits, but some are really funny. So I would say just kind of wait. Yeah,
I don't want to skirt over them. I'm just like, it's like, if I was reading this, if we weren't talking about this, and if I was reading this, that scene would have come up, and I'm like, oh no, and just scroll past really quick. But it wouldn't have put me off or anything like that. So, and
how are you with licking? Again, are you good with licking?
Yeah, that's fine. I think it's just like a food. I just have PTSD.
Because there's something towards the end, like the whole like another scene, and there's a bit of licking, of sort of like, again, Dean's got that sort of like residual, like the smell, and then he's like, he wants to like lick, Reader. So there's like that. So again, some people might like, I mean, they're definitely like, there's a reason why I think I like cats more than dogs. I just don't find them as drooly. Yep. So I kind of like, I think that's why I gravitate towards that. So yeah, initially, but again, I think it's just because it's such a bit, like, you imagine like the big dogs that are just like all like drool and like, just slobber and just all over the
Slobber, and
place.
it's all over their face, and then it's on
it's
their chest, and then they come to you and they're like, I love you so much, and you're like, I like you too, go away. You don't get that with cats. Cats are great. There's been a cat in the room for this entire podcast, and you guys haven't heard a single sound from him because he's a good boy.
But yes, I think that it's really fun, and then it's very fluffy, and then it's very smutty, and it has just a lot of things that I really enjoy in the dirty. There's dirty talk, but again, it's not like there's praise, right? Which I didn't really think too much of it, but then reading through it again, I'm like, oh, there's these different things that kind of tick off all my I like this kind of stuff. So we should make a new tag. We should just tag Dean Winchester as a good boy. Okay.
He is.
I think you should. I think you have quite a few that you can use that with. So
I'm going to put that in. See, again, that's another thing. I haven't read this fic. I've just scrolled through, and obviously you guys don't have the benefit of Sandra's wonderful comments and highlighting, but I can see boatloads of praise thinking. I'm like, oh man, why didn't you tag this? Why didn't you put in it that this was praise king all the way across the board? Because I would have been all over this anyway because it looks good. But
yeah, because again, like some of the tags was like animal transformation, fluff and smut, to Kirstine, oral sex.
Yeah, and then there's like dog jokes and stuff. I would have been in for that.
Yeah. So again, there's so much more to it that could have been. So, but I mean, again, like this is a reader that always gets a ton of hits. So it's not like they're buried under, a lot of other stuff. So once you find them, and I'm sure like if you sorted by like, most hits or most kudos or, like whatever, like you're going to come across these kinds of authors that, right away you can like get into them and dive into their stuff. But it's not until you start reading more of their things that I think you get an idea. It's a fun one. I think I think it's worth the read. So
you sold me on it for certain, Sandra.
Good. Well, now you have 100%. To sell me. You have to sell me on yours because I haven't read all of yours yet. This fic recommendation by Karlee is For Us Sinners, and it's by There Must Be a Lock. Rating is explicit. No archive warnings apply. Category is female male. Relationship is Sam Winchester you. Notes: no, seriously, this is basically start to finish blasphemy. Please don't read if that's going to offend you. Chapter 1. You're frowning at the trunk arsenal, wondering if it's possible to sharpen a machete too much, when movement catches your eye. Sam rounds the corner of the old warehouse, and you grab a knife and a whetstone, just to have something to focus on that's not him, and his stupid, smirky face, or the way his shoulders look in that suit. The whole priest thing is a really good look on him. Dean's not back yet? He asks, without preamble, sitting on the edge of the trunk next to you. You focus very intently on your knife. Nice to see you too, Sam, you snark, to cover the way you're blushing. Why yes, I did have a super fun afternoon of doing fucking nothing. Waiting around for you two is exactly how I wanted to spend the last 3 hours. Thanks for asking. He laughs. Weren't you just telling me that I should stop pretending to be normal, polite Sam? Whatever, you mutter. Let me see that, he says abruptly, and plucks the knife from your grip before you can protest. He takes one look at it and laughs at you, twirling the blade in his fingers. Working out some frustration, huh? I don't know what you're talking about. What's really going on? You're only like this when you're hungry or horny. Bullshit, you snap, but he's totally fucking right. He's way too perceptive these days. You've been refusing to play poker with him ever since the whole soulless deal came to light. He's like a walking polygraph test, a very attractive, muscled polygraph who's really good in the sack. He's analyzing your expression with his head cocked. The knife thing? I don't know what that's not. He holds the tip of the blade to your throat, and you stop stammering immediately. You close your eyes and swallow hard. That's not new, though, he says thoughtfully. When you open your eyes, ready to protest, he's tucking the knife back in its sheath and twisting to set it in the trunk. How'd you know about that? You ask reluctantly. He just smirks, that god-awful, not Sam, not smile, with his dimples popping and his eyes glittering. One of these days you're going to realize that I'll never judge you, he says, low and sly. Come on, tell me. He puts on a prim, sanctimonious face, pointing at the collar and says, confess your sins, and all will be forgiven. He ruins the pious effect by licking his lips and aggressively eye-fucking you.
You brought us such a lovely, lovely fic. Like, oh, it's cute, it's funny, it's got Dog Dean in it. I love it. And I'm bringing you guys some Soulless Sam, because we love a bit of Soulless Sam up in here. He's the best. He's
now, is that tagged in it? Is Soulless Sam tagged?
It is.
Okay, good.
It is.
Good.
I mentioned this one actually before in the main sort of discussion of the podcast. So this is For Us Sinners. And it's by There Must Be a Lock, and there are underscores in between each word. So if you go and search for that.
I love them. They're great.
So here's, I'm gonna read you the tags and let's see if you guys can pick out what might have drawn me, our resident Sam mortal, into this fic. So we're tagged Soulless Sam Winchester, religion, praise kink, explicit sexual contact, sex in a church, female ejaculation. They fuck in a church, I'm sorry. In capitals, literally in the confessional, blasphemy, non-explicit mentions of knife play, mentions of Winchester threesomes, major perversion of the Hail Mary prayer, and gun kink. So what I will say, looking at this from a tag perspective, it's a 3-chapter work. So chapter 1 is they fuck in a church, literally in the confessional. It's fucking great. I don't know what to tell you guys, is great. And then the second chapter of this is I won't spoil, but that's the mentions Winchester threesomes thing, and then the third chapter is the gun kink. But I would say the bulk of this story, the most fleshing out, goes into the first chapter, and then the second and the third chapters are kind of like just sort of like snippets of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And like especially for me, I wish they'd been a little bit more fleshed out, because there's a lot of kinks that really press all my buttons in those ones. But this, as I say, the main bulk of the story, the main sort of fleshing out of the story is in the first chapter, which is, Reader's been left behind while the boys are off. I believe they're like destroying something to get rid of a ghost or a spirit or something, and she's been left behind and she's mad about it. And Sam comes back and he's all soulless and assholey, and it's great. And he just teases her, he just taunts her with like how he knows she wants to fuck him, and she's like, I really don't, you're like broken, no. So it kind of just goes back and forth, and then he brings her back later when it's nighttime and like just drags her into the confessional, and they do filthy things. You can never get that church clean again, ever. It's a good job it's holy ground, because it's fucking dirty now. But there's a lot of banter, between them, with him being like, oh well, I don't have a soul, they can't condemn me to hell, what are they going to do, kill me twice, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But it's really, there's a lot of sort of manipulation of religion, manipulation of Christianity and things that's really quite interesting to watch. And I mean, of course, we're all here for Soulless Sam. He is what we're all here for, really. All right. I mean, you can be here for Mark of Cain, Dean, but I can't be here for Soulless
absolutely.
Sam.
No, absolutely.
Right,
I already know Soulless Sam is like at the top for you. So that's
he's bae. We love Soulless Sam. 100%.
Which again, I am so surprised that season 6 is not on rotation for you all the time. Like, I would think that you would never want to watch any other, like, besides season 8. I would think you'd not want to watch any other season because of Soulless Sam in season 6, but yet you tend to stop at like season 5, right? Like, from what you told me.
I do. I think it's because as much as I like Soulless Sam, I know that it's not a good time for Sam. And I know, like, I know the outcome. I know what's going to come. I know all the trials that Sam faces when he gets his soul back, and then Castiel fucks with his head, and like he has to remember everything, and like I know how bad it is. And also, like, Solo Sam's hot, and I like Sam in charge. I like him not giving a fuck.
Mm-hmm.
He's an asshole. He's a dick. And that's like, a pretty face and a good body is not going to erase the fact that you're a dick for most of this season, dude.
Mm-hmm.
No. But then, of course, you've got the really great episodes, like the one with the aliens and the fairies.
Oh yeah, that's clap your hands if you believe. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah,
where he's trying to like learn how to act like he's got a soul, and like Dean's like trying to give him some tutoring on the matter, which is really funny.
The scene in the diner where he's like, yeah, but if you've done everything you can do for the night, you can't do anything else until morning. Why can't you fuck the hot girl? And Dean's just like, because you can't, because you'd be filled with angst and you can't get a boner. And Sam's like, hey, that waitress is hot though. It's great. It's a perfect scene. The scene with the lady in the cups is great. It's just a fabulous episode. So it swings and roundabouts. But yeah, this one features Solo Sam. And he's not a total asshole in it, but he's definitely not like regular Sam. You know,
right.
Sam would be falling over himself to make sure that the reader was comfortable. And, you know, this is just like, we're going to fuck in a church. It's going to be great.
Now,
so
is there any,
yeah.
I might have missed the tag. Is there any priest thing happening with them at all? Do they dress as priests, or is that not a thing in there?
Is he dressed as a priest in the beginning?
Because I'm going to say if that was a thing, they should have put that in there. But I don't remember you saying that was a thing. So probably it isn't then, because that would be probably one of the first tags.
I think he might be wearing a priest's. Yeah, I think he might be wearing a priest's outfit.
You got to mention that, because that gives you a whole like vibe thing too. Like I would think for some people.
Yeah, it's right in the first sort of thing. You know, he's
okay.
The whole priest thing is a really good look on him. So yeah, always tag your priest stuff, because there's a lot of deviants like me and Sandra out there that will click on that so hard we'll break something. Jesus Christ, priests. We mentioned our friend Dee quite a lot, but she has a priest kink scene that's just
so good.
Got to be read to be believed.
Yeah,
it's incredible. Yeah. Absolutely incredible.
There's a lot of kinks going on in that one chapter. That's pretty amazing. Yeah, so and that is there. You said there's also there's Dean vibes in it too. Something's going on with Dean too, or no? Does the reader do a Dean stuff?
Yeah, okay. There's the reader doesn't do Dean stuff, but the reader gets caught by Dean. Her and Sam are falling around in the back seat while Dean's asleep.
Okay,
and he's like teasing her, like, you want him to wake up. It's a direct follow-on from the first chapter where he puts her in the confessional and he makes her confess, basically, but like to like filthy things.
Mm-hmm.
And he like makes her confess that she'd been thinking of Dean while she was sleeping with him, and how she wants Dean to catch them and stuff like that. Okay. So he's messing around with her in the back seat, and Dean's asleep, and you know, like Sam's winding her up, like, oh, you have to be quiet, otherwise he's going to see you, and what's he going to think?
Okay.
And then at the end of the chapter, Dean wakes up. And they lock eyes before he has a chance to pretend to be asleep. So he knows that she knows that he's awake.
Okay. And has like, so there's okay.
Yeah, there's no distinct sort of Dean vibes.
It's implied, right? So
yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, so the summary for chapter 2 is in which Sam answers a prayer, falling around in the back seat with the intention of waking Dean up. Sam keeps his clothes on though.
And then what's the note for the third one?
Here there be gunplay, because again, that's something that he makes her confess to, that she finds it hot, like when he's handling knives and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So there's sort of like, you know, like danger kink alluded to.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last chapter, they're like mid fucking, and she's stopped, she's tired, and she stopped, and he's like, I'm gonna count to 10, and then you're gonna move. And he basically like pulls a gun on her.
Okay.
And like puts it to her head, and she finds that amazingly erotic. And they start going at it again, but that's where it ends. It's really, really short.
Okay.
So it's only like a few paragraphs, and I'm like, oh, I wish you'd have fleshed that out more. That would have been really, really good.
Mm.
You know?
Yeah, they left it. They kind of like put a spot, and sometimes that's a conscious choice, and then you kind of leave it leave it up to the reader after. And sometimes it's like, oh, you just wish. That's kind of like the best ones though, right? Like the ones that you want to just have like continue and continue and continue, but then you realize, they probably picked a good spot. Well, I'll have to read part of it for when we do the Canon fodder. So I will definitely probably end up reading all of it. And I'll let you know my thoughts on it.
Absolutely. Like I said, when we're done with this, I'm gonna go read I've Got a Great Dean, because I've read the one where he wants to be a dog and he ends up a cat, and that one's great.
Yeah, that one's really that'll be for another time too. But yeah, I love that one.
Yeah, definitely.
Well,
so
good.
yeah,
I think we have some good recommendations to go kind of give us, some follow up to the whole tag discussion. So that's awesome.
Yeah, no, we will put the links to these fics in the description. If you're listening on Anchor or Spotify, they'll be in the description. If you're listening on YouTube, again, they'll be in the description. It's just in a different place. So yeah, go ahead and, if we've enticed you, go read them. Leave your author some kudos and some comments, because we've told you before, we live on that. We thrive on it. Drop them some comments and kudos, and you can tell them we sent you, and then maybe they'll come to us and let us read more of their stuff.
Yeah,
or at least give us permission to read their stuff.
Yeah, or they'd let us, maybe they want to come on at some point. And we have so many hopes. Like they might want to come on and talk about their stuff. So that would be
fun. Work with us to convince these shy fanfic authors that they should talk to you guys, because we would love that. We would love to have authors on, or even you guys, readers, come ask us some questions. If you want to come and have a chat, we're totally open for that, because we're obviously authors, but we'd love to know what you guys who just read think. What do you think about tags? What do you look for or not look for? Come, tell us, drop us an email, find us on Twitter. Let us know your thoughts, and we will incorporate them into the next episode for sure.
So I guess we should we can end with different ways for people to find us. So again, if you want to drop us an email about any of the stuff that we've talked about, or have questions or suggestions, you can reach us at idlingintheimpala@gmail.com. Our Twitter is idling in the letter D Impala. And if you want to reach out to me on AO3, again, we like to say this, I'm all over the place. On AO3, I'm Drasna, Drasna. On Twitter, I'm S Kyle, Kyle, Writes, Writes. And you can also find me on my website, where I have information about my original fiction, and that's sandrakyle.com.
Yep, so in absolute reversal to how we are in real life, where Sandra's the organised one and I'm the agent of chaos, I'm actually fairly organised in my contacts. You can find me on AO3. I'm Karlee Karma. I've said it before, I'll say it again. However you think that's spelt, it's not. So it's Kilo, Alpha, Romeo, Lima, Echo, Echo, Karma, as you would spell it normally. I'm the same on Twitter, Karlee Karma. It's the same profile picture in both places, in case you think, hey, I wonder if there's more than one person with a weird spelt name. Probably not. It's probably me. So yeah, reach out to us personally, reach out to the podcast. Let us know your thoughts. What do you think about tags? How do you tag your work? What do you look for, not look for? Let us know how you feel.
Yeah, and we appreciate you guys listening, and we hope to see you, I guess, in the backseat soon. So have a good one.
Thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you again soon. Bye. Uh-oh.
What?
I just got a text from Dean. It just says car now.
Oh no. Busted.
Yeah, we got to get baby back in the garage before Dean has a panic attack again. I can't cope with another, somebody stole my car.
Well, thanks for coming along for the ride. It was great catching up, and hopefully we can sneak out again soon and not cause Dean to have major palpitations in the process.
Yeah, ideally not. You know how he gets. It was really great catching up, though. We hope to see you again soon.
Bye.
Bye.